There's the number 75 from Crone Racing, Colin Braun, all of 18 years old, but a 3-year veteran entering his 3rd year in the Rolex Sports Car Series. Currently 26th in the overall. He is an amazing young man. His father, Jeff, is an engineer. It's a family effort. His brother, Travis, is working as a journalist this weekend after logging data for that team. He, too, is a teenager. Lee Diffie takes a look at Colin, who started here at Daytona 2 years ago as a part of Team 16, and last year with his team was in contention for a championship.
Last June, at just 17 years, 9 months of age, Colin Braun became the youngest winner of a major North American auto race, the Brumos Porsche 250 here at Daytona. Tobacco age restrictions, however, forced him to sit out 3 races. If it weren't for that, Colin may have joined teammate Jörg Bergmeister as co-champions of the Rolex Sports Car Series.
It's obviously a little disappointing I couldn't run those 3 races, but that was part of the deal. You know, sometimes it's good to be young, sometimes it's bad to be young. It's just the way it worked out. So I'm very fortunate to be kind of a driver raised by an engineer. So I have a good understanding about how things work. And a lot of people probably don't know the fact that I have a go-kart track in my backyard. That's pretty cool. It's actually a track my dad and Fermin Velez, who drove the Scandia car, designed together. A little longer than a 3rd mile, but I like to go out there and just do laps and stay fit and keep sharp.
After coming so close last year, Colin has high expectations for 2007.
Our goals are pretty much to qualify in every pole and win every race that we can. I think that would pretty much guarantee us winning the championship. So I can't go out on the racetrack not expecting or not hoping and having a goal set to be the quickest car and the car that, you know, wins the race. And I just don't work like that.
You heard Colin Braun mention the name Fermin Velez of Spain, a great sports car driver in his own right, passed away of cancer a few years ago. I think he'd be pretty proud to know that that track he and Jeff Braun built has produced another terrific young racer in Colin Braun. Now Max Pappas is his teammate, one of his teammates for this race, and Mad Max is standing by with Calvin Fish.
Max trying to stay dry here. Max, talk about the very special relationship that you have with the Braun family. I mean, not just with Colin now as your teammate for this year, but how did it all begin?
Actually, no, Colin's father was my first engineer when I came over in '96, driving for Ferrari, actually here in Daytona. And, you know, I didn't know, I knew actually he had a son, you know, but it was pretty cool that now he's, you know, he's my co-driver. And, you know, he's a young kid, but he's a very smart guy.
Talk about the fact you're coming back full-time now in Daytona Prototypes. You won the championship with Chip Ganassi and Scott Pruitt back in 2004. Team has had quite a few changes here over the offseason. Went from the Ford power plant to the Pontiac. What do you expect for this season?
You know, one of the major things here in the team, you know, definitely was a change, you know, towards Pontiac and GM product, and I came with that as well. I think, you know, it was a great change. You know, the team has showed a lot of progress. Unfortunately, this race, you know, we had a little bit of problem, but we're still hanging on there. You know, we have great engineering, you know, a very good team spirit, and you know, I'm gonna give everything I have because one championship is not enough, and these guys deserve more. So I'm gonna really try hard for them.
You talk about team spirit and really digging deep. How deep do you have to dig when you get into a situation like you're in a very long race, the car's many laps down? I guess you just have to look at the big picture in the championship and try and score as many points?
I think if you're a racer, you just want to go for it. You know, it doesn't matter if you're 20 laps down, 1 lap down, or in the lead. I think it's what you have in your heart, and I think that you can't change it. The day when that day will come, that you think different, you better stay home.
All right, mate. Best of luck the rest of the way.
Thanks a lot, guys. You know, pleasure to be here in Daytona. Thanks for the support. Ciao.
Ciao, Mad Max. Boy, it's amazing how the time goes by. Seems like only yesterday Max Pappas made his introduction to the fans here at Daytona, driving that Ferrari 333 SP at qualifying laps and quicker in the closing stages of the Rolex 24.
I don't know why, but that drive he put in that road race at Texas that you and I covered a long time ago in that Ferrari, just through those Mickey Mouse chicanes, all those walls everywhere. And I mean, he just rocketed along that day. It was just extraordinary.
Now here's Max, a mentor to a young driver, a father himself. He and his wife Tatiana now have a little boy. And we have a whole new generation of young drivers out here like Colin Braun. Now, the Daytona prototype class in Grand Am Racing this year went to a common ECU, electronic control unit, that manages The electrical
Everything.
functions on the car, basically everything. Thank you, David.
Well, they went to the common ECU because Grand American Racing decided they did not want these drivers to have the advantage of traction control. It's obviously expensive to control, it's expensive to run, and of course it's very hard for anybody to police whether you've got it or not. So to make it easy for themselves, Grand American came up with Bosch Electronics to come up with a common ECU for all of these cars, and maybe it's not working so well on some of these engines.
Well, everyone I spoke to said that the transition has not been all that difficult, but when you have this many electrical problems going on a race, you have to wonder. Now this is a great battle for 5th place. Jimmy Johnson, the Nextel Cup and Daytona 500 champion, trying to hold off 18-year-old Colin Braun, who first came to the Rolex 24 2 years ago when he raced with, among others, a couple of other 16 years old. It was known as Team 16. They raced in the GT class, finished about 7th, as I recall. Also had Ross Bentley, their driver coach, on the team. It's a great effort.
I remember when I first came to race in America, well, I came here, the very first race I did in America was the very first one of these in 1962, the 3-hour Intercontinental, which Bill France put on, and certainly has grown since then. But when I started coming to America regularly, you couldn't drive in a race until you were 21, a road race. Now you got all these 18-year-olds, 17-year-olds.
Well, Lee Divvy talked about it earlier. Colin Braun might have had a share of the Drivers' Championship in the class last year when he drove with Jörg Bergmeister, who won it solo, simply because the youngster was too young to take part in several of the races that involved tobacco sponsorship. Not the Grand Am, but one of the other shows on the weekend. And under the Attorney's General agreement with the tobacco industry, no one under the age of 21 could be in, or 18 could be involved in that kind of enterprise. I call it the Kyle Busch rule, because he was the first driver, in my knowledge, to have been knocked out of a race through no fault of his own, but simply because of his youth.
It's a pretty extraordinary rule. If you're going to let them go out there and dice with death, which some of them do, and not let them be associated with some alcohol or tobacco, seems pretty weird to me. But
now
there it is.
It's a three-way battle for 4th as Jimmy Johnson looks up under Matthew Al-Hadef. It didn't look like he gave him much room there, but Johnson forges on as they leap up onto the banking in NASCAR turns 1 and 2.
You don't fool with someone like Jimmy Johnson. Even though he's got a plastic car around him instead of a metal car, he still isn't going to give any quarter.
Oh, and look at Colin Braun right up on Johnson's
Nice drop.
gearbox.
He's getting a big drop.
And look at the Krone car, the bright green one, moving around in the slipstream of the car ahead.
Colin Braun goes underneath, so he resumes that position right behind Jimmy Johnson.